Welcome to AI Predicts. In this video, I've asked the three leading AI models in the world, Grok, ChatGPT and Gemini, all to predict the upcoming fights for UFC 324, Pimblett versus Gaethje. Then, when all the fights are played out, we'll find out which model was most accurate, and we've also put a real-life accumulator bet on based on the AI predictions, and if you comment on this video by the time the fights have all played out, you're in with the chance of winning a split of that bet if it does indeed come in. Just super quick before we kick off, if you are interested in future UFC predictions, I will be doing these videos for all of the upcoming UFC main events, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. But anyway, let's jump into it. Alright, so here are the predictions on screen for the prelims, and then after that we'll move on to the main card. So, the first fight on the prelims is Alex Perez versus Charles Johnson. Grok and ChatGPT are both calling that an Alex Perez decision, whereas Gemini thinks Charles Johnson is going to win that by KO. So, well, KO/TKO. But yeah, I think these both pretty high caliber fighters, quite evenly matched. The reason I personally think Alex Perez is going to win this, and I think a decision is probably pretty reasonable as well to predict. The reason I say that is he's had some really good, like, high caliber fights. He has lost them, to be fair, but he made them really competitive. For example, another guy on this card, Deiveson Figueiredo, he lost to him, but he made it really competitive. Same with the champion Alexandre Pantoja. So I have some faith in Alex Perez there. I think Charles Johnson could, he's really good at striking. He could knock him out, but yeah, I think the sensible money there goes with Perez. Next up, we have Nikita Krylov versus Modestas Bukauskas. A bit of a mouthful. Grok and ChatGPT are agreeing again, and that is on a Krylov submission, whereas Gemini thinks Bukauskas is going to win that by KO or TKO. I think Krylov is underestimated a lot, and sometimes he comes out of like sneaky performances, and he surprises sort of as an underdog. I do, however, think his time in the UFC, is coming to a close. He recently got KO'd by Dominic Reyes, who is the guy that gets KO'd by everyone else. So I personally think Bukauskas is, he's more of like a streaking fighter. He's up and coming. I believe he is in Tom Aspinall's team. I might be wrong about that, but that's always good, to learn off him and train with him. That's got to be helpful as a light heavyweight, train with someone that size. So yeah, Bukauskas I think wins this, maybe not by KO, but possibly a decision. So we'll see how that one goes. Next up, Ateba Gaethje versus Andrei Puliev. Now, the reason I laughed at that one is because I just feel sorry for this Puliev guy. Like, I don't know when they're going to step up Gaethje in terms of matchmaking. This one, I think, I looked at the odds earlier, I'm pretty sure Gaethje is a heavier favourite in this fight than Anthony Joshua was against Jake Paul, which is mental. But it's for a reason, right? This guy's like a smaller version of Francis Ngannou in his prime. He's an absolute destroyer, and he's just touches someone and they go to sleep. So anyway, in terms of the predictions, we've got Grok and Gemini both predicting a Gaethje knockout, and ChatGPT, pretty surprisingly, has gone for a Puliev knockout. Don't know where the sort of rationale for that is. Maybe, they've seen something in the data that Gaethje overextends sometimes against certain styles of fighters, and he leaves himself open, but I personally can't see that happening. He's a massive favourite for a reason, so I think with the bet, that's what we're going to go for. Gaethje, one of the easier choices to make there. Now, the main fight, the headliner of the prelims, which is Umar Nurmagomedov versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Crazy fight. I mean, I can't believe that didn't make onto the main card, especially with one of the fights on the main card. But I suppose I've got to kind of beef it out sort of evenly, right? Anyway, so all three models are in perfect alignment here and are predicting an Umar Nurmagomedov decision. And I think that's most likely. I could also see him tying up a submission or getting a KO. I think Deiveson Figueiredo is a really good fighter. I just think Nurmagomedov's his pedigree, his style, his camp, his team, got everything going for him. So yeah, I think that one's one of the easier ones to predict. Although on paper it doesn't look that way, and the bookmakers don't make it Nurmagomedov a big favourite. I personally think he is, as an avid UFC fan who's been watching for years and years. This guy is pretty special, Nurmagomedov. So yeah, that's what we'll go for on the bet for sure. Now, onto the main card. Right, and we're going to kick off with Arnold Allen versus Gene Silver. Grok and ChatGPT are both predicting an Arnold Allen decision. and Gemini's predicting a Gene Silver decision. I personally think they're both evenly matched. I think Gene Silver's slightly more explosive. I think Arnold Allen might be technically a little bit better, but I really do think this one is going to be one just based on temperament. I think like Gene Silver's like his barking and his like taunting and the sort of fake handshakes and all these sort of emoting that he does, I think it's actually going to get in the head of Arnold Allen. I think Allen's like a nice guy, and I don't think he's like mentally weak or anything, but I think he's going to be like, he's a bit awkward and he's a slightly autistic in a way. I don't know if that's too harsh to say, but like I don't know if how he'll deal with that. I think that might get into his head and he won't know how to sort of, he might just go like that, which probably he will do, but he might then think, oh shit, you know, like I don't know whether that will get into his head, but I can see that happen. I can see Gene Silver sort of snowballing in confidence as the fight goes on. I think he tags Arnold Allen up a couple of times. He definitely gets tagged himself, no doubt about that. But yeah, I slightly go against, well, I'll go with Gemini, but against the other two on this one personally. So we'll take that into consideration when we're putting the accumulator on. Now, this next fight, I have no idea what it's doing on the main card. Obviously, I think they're just trying to pad out the prelims with that Umar Nurmagomedov Davidson Figueiredo fight. But anyway, we've got Natalia Silva versus Rose Namajunas. Grok and ChatGPT are both predicting a Rose Namajunas decision, and Gemini's predicting a Natalia Silva decision. So, as far as it goes, I find myself agreeing with Gemini a lot more than the other two. Natalia Silva is a betting favourite, so, and you know, Namajunas is like has some of the worst performances in UFC history. You know, losing the belt to I can't even remember what her name was now, but one of the worst. I think it was like the least strikes ever thrown in a UFC title fight. Namajunas has gotten way more boring in the later stages of her career, and Natalia Silva is actually a pretty good striker. She's got really good kicking game. She's a good distance manager. So yeah, I personally think Natalia Silva wins this one by decision. I think possibly a KO happens, but it is WMMA, so that's quite a rare instance, even in the big title fights. So there's that one. Next up, big heavyweight fight between Waldo Cortez Acosta and Derek Lewis. Grok is predicting an Acosta decision, excuse me. ChatGPT is predicting a Derek Lewis KO, and Gemini's predicting a Waldo Cortez Acosta KO. So I personally think Cortez Acosta wins this one by KO. I think Derek Lewis is a bit long in the tooth. You know, he's coming towards the end of his career. And Waldo is on an absolutely mad streak at the minute. He's really looked improved in these last couple of years. I think he had 5 fights in 2025, which for, you know, that's a pretty good turnaround, especially for a heavyweight who normally take a lot of damage and their recovery's a bit slower. But yeah, I think Acosta's hands are really good. I think Derek Lewis, that's sort of the only thing he's got. I can just see Derek Lewis throwing a big shot, Acosta, you know, weaving and then hitting him off balance, and then Derek Lewis sort of does that thing where he looks like he doesn't want to be there anymore. Even though sometimes, you know, he like backs up to the cage and then he might throw one punch, but you can tell he just doesn't want to be there. He's done, and I can definitely envisage that happening. Anyway, on to the co-main event. We've got Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. Grok and Gemini are predicting a Sean O'Malley decision, and ChatGPT thinks O'Malley is going to KO Song Yadong. I personally think O'Malley is going to win this. Probably more by decision than anything, because Song Yadong is definitely not a pushover. He's an explosive, powerful striker, so he presents his own form of danger. But I think O'Malley, you know, he's very slick. He's one of the better strikers I think we've seen in the UFC. Very powerful, very dynamic, really deep tool bag. So yeah, I think Song Yadong does have a chance, but Sean O'Malley for me is the favourite, and I think we'll go for a decision. I think it will go to a decision, excuse me. Then the big fight, the big title fight, well, interim title fight between Justin Gaethje and Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Grok and ChatGPT are both predicting a Gaethje KO, and Gemini predicting a Paddy Pimblett submission. So this one's tough. I think I do prefer Paddy Pimblett in this one. I do think he's sort of like the more sprightly, the more sort of, you know, lively fighter, even though, you know, Gaethje is very violent and he's a good KO artist, but he hasn't really sort of done that as of late. He's been getting KO'd himself pretty spectacularly. I'm thinking of the Max Holloway one in particular, where he just got absolutely dropped and stiffened. face planted. But anyway, yeah, Justin Gaethje is really good, and I think he is a slight step up in competition for Paddy. But I do think Paddy is better. I think his grappling is going to come into effect there. I think Justin Gaethje is going to maybe swing a little bit wild while he's getting frustrated. And then Paddy's going to have the chance to sort of lock up some sort of submission. I can see them both like getting into a bit of a brawl and like swinging, and that's when sort of the odds go out the window, and like, you know, anyone could win here. I think Paddy Pimblett, although we haven't really seen it all that much, has got pretty good hands himself. He's just a little bit wild, you know. He's not a natural striker. He's a natural grappler and a jiu-jitsu guy, but the striking is sort of secondary to him, and it feels like the only time Paddy wants to strike is when someone's, you know, already wobbled, when he's caught him luckily, or it's, you know, for the sort of purpose to engage in grappling at some point. So I personally think Paddy's going to do it. Maybe that's because I'm English and I want to see him be champion, or interim champion, I keep forgetting. But yeah, so there's that one. So all of that said, let's now move on and see what we're going to put on the accumulator. All right, so here it is, and the first fight, we've gone for Alex Perez to win. I've tried to stay away from method of victories just because that sort of MMA is hard enough to predict anyway without it. You know, we could have put Alex Perez to for a decision and he could sub him, and then that's the bet gone straight away. I know Charles Johnson could win and that same outcome could happen, but trying to give ourselves the best chance of actually winning some money here. So yeah, Alex Perez to win that one. We've got Modestas Bukauskas to beat Nikita Krylov. We've got Ateba Gauthier to beat Pulev. Again, I almost went for a KO here, but the win for Gauthier is 1-10. I think the KO was 1-8. So if he wins, it's going to be by KO. So that doesn't really help the odds that much anyway. So we've just gone for, on the off chance that Pulev, you know, survives and it goes to a decision, we'll just go for the straight up win. Next up, we've got Umar Nurmagomedov to beat Davison Figueiredo. We've got Gene Silver to beat Arnold Allen. Even though ChatGPT and Grok both predicted an Allen win, we had Gemini that predicted a Gene Silver win, and I do agree with that. Same instance for this one. The first two, Grok and ChatGPT, both predicted a Rose Namajunas win, but Gemini, who I think is a bit more on the money with this in this video, predicted a Natalia Silva win, and I totally agree with that. I think Silva is going to win this one. We've also got Cortez Acosta to beat Derek Lewis. We've got Sean O'Malley to beat Song Yadong, and we've got Paddy the Baddy Pimblett to do it against Justin Gaethje. Even though, again, you know, we're sticking with Gemini, like for the reasons I've just sort of said there. So because the odds, you know, odds with UFC and MMA aren't really that good, boxing as well, you know, fight odds are always pretty short. So we're putting accumulator on, but we've had to put a bit of a bigger stake on than we normally do. I normally put a quid on for like Premier League, you know, predictions or whatever, Champions League, and they're normally really good odds. I think if you're interested, by the way, I've got a Premier League predictions video out for this weekend as well. We put a quid on the 10 games, and that came out at like 2,800 quid, and it's not actually the most crazy bet. If you have a look at it, it's pretty sensible, I think. So we've had to put a bit more money on. We've gone for 20 quid, and that is going to potentially return £488.68. So that's not too bad, I don't think. So as I said in the intro, get your comments in on the video now, and you can be in with a chance of winning a split of that. So I'll just quickly explain how that works. We've never actually won one yet, so it's still new, and I'm trying to sort of refine the process if it does ever happen. It seems like it's not going to. But so what will happen is, you know, if we win the bet, then I'll choose probably 3 or 4 of you commenters to win the money. I'll then sort of, you know, tell you you've won, and we'll exchange whatever it is that you would prefer, like email addresses or WhatsApps or whatever makes you most comfortable, whatever's easiest for you. And then we'll do the same. We'll have a little bit of a chat and exchange sort of like financial information, whether that's bank details or PayPal, email, or whatever it is. Again, whichever makes you most comfortable and whichever is easiest. And then I'll just simply send the money over. And there we have it. That is basically the end of the video. I just want to quickly say, if you watched up to this point, thank you very, very much. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot for a small channel like me. And while you're here, if I could just ask you to subscribe to the channel and like the video, I'd be very, very grateful for that indeed. But in any event, thank you so much for watching. Take it easy, enjoy the fights, and I'll see you in the next one.